Okay, good morning. Good morning to us. Thank you for joining us as we begin a brand new week. Avodas Hashem, and getting closer to Hashem and working on ourselves and becoming great and greater and helping other people to do the same. Siyata D'Shmaya. We begin with Kesser Shem Tov Kuf Hey. And the Heilige Tzaddik says like this, Mei Baal Shem Tov. Mashal, a parable, Shepam Echad, one time Ta'oyu Seicharim Min Aderech. There were some merchants who were taking a journey and they made a mistake. They got lost. And they decided to just stay there. Because why should they keep on traveling if they don't know which direction is the right direction? So they'll stay there until somebody passes by who knows a little bit the area and can tell them to show them which way to go to be able to get back to their homes. There was one person who came and he recommended that they go on a particular path, and that path was rife with different dangerous difficulties like wild animals and highway robbers. And then there were others who advised them to take a completely different path, that path was yashar, that path was totally straight and led them straight where they want to go. So what's the parable? What's the nimshal? What's the key? So the tzaddik says, Ki oisiyos haTorah shebehem nivra olam bo ba'olam hazeh kidmus seicharim. He says, really, maybe the world is less about us than it is about the world itself. It's reminding me the Piyasetzner Rebbe, and we were learning from yesterday, Shal Shidduch time has a sefer called Derech HaMelech, which I mentioned also yesterday. And in Derech HaMelech, he has this incredible thing toward one of the early parshias toward the beginning. I can't remember exactly which. He says over there that we think that the Torah is here to help us serve Hashem. He says there is a way of understanding it where actually the Torah needs to serve Hashem, and in order to serve Hashem, it needs human beings to actualize it. But he says really we're just sort of like the conduits, like it's the Torah needs to serve, the Torah itself is an entity and needs to serve God. And it's like this whole incredible shift of perspective, which is humbling and basically sees us as sort of the conduit to allow the Torah to manifest itself. I'll try to find you the exact Mar Makam. It's a very different way of thinking. But over here he says a similar thing. The letters of the Aleph Beis, which are the building blocks for creation, Kiyaduas, the Gemara in Brachas tells us, Yedea Haya B'Tzalel, L'Tzar V'Oisiyah, Shebehem Nivur Shemayim V'Aretz, right? B'Tzalel, who created the Mishkan, that the Zohar Kadosh tells us shiur Damashkana Shiur D'Maaseh Bereshis. The way the Mishkan was arranged was in alignment, a microcosm of all of creation. So B'Tzalel needed to know the letters in Sefer Yetzirah with which Hashem literally created every aspect of the physical world. Because the Mishkan and the creation are mirroring one another. So the letters come down into this world. It's similar to a piece that we had actually a couple of weeks ago. The letters come down. Ki oisiyas haTorah shebehem nivra olam ba'u ba'olam hazeh. They come down into this world, kidmus seicharim, and they are like merchants that are lost, and they can go one way or another. Meaning, this whole world, with all aspects of it, so nature, as nature is, even without being interacted with, just the way that we look at nature, like we've spoken about many times, how we walk through a park, like what's our consciousness? We're not interacting with the trees, we're not touching the grass, we're not, but just how we are reflecting on it. And then certainly how we interact with nature, how we eat, how we engage with different things. Are we just pulling leaves off trees? Are we respectful of nature and interacting with it in an appropriate way? Right? Not Sar Balachayim. We're taking care of creatures and so on. And then just in general, world events, the ways that people treat one another, geopolitical events, which are really the ways that people treat each other. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Right, which are really the ways that people join each other. You talk about, Russia, Ukraine. Putin could stop the war today. It's not a war of millions of people against millions of people. It's a war against one person against one person. That's really what it is. It just happens to be Hashem set up the world in such a way that there are, sort of the earthly embodiment of Sarim Elyonim that have, disproportionate amount of power. But it all comes down to the same midos. Right? That's really what's holding the world back is consciousness, one way or another. And there's really no difference between one person transforming their own inner world and the whole world transforming, because it's all the same midos. It's just whether it's in me, who has no power, or whether it's in the the body and the heart and mind of a person who really does have a lot of sway. But that means that all of creation, on every single level, is lost and requires guidance. That's what we're here for. We're here to provide the guidance. And the world could go literally one way or another. So he says the letters of the Torah that become creation, ba'u ba'olam hazeh, kedmos sechar, they are these merchants, v'toyu me'aderech, and they're lost. V'yeshenim, and they're going and they're sleeping in where they are. So the world is dormant. The world is passive, it's not active. Uba echad v'leimed lishma. And then a person comes and learns Torah properly, with dveikus. And limud lishma enables the person to be oisik b'Torah the whole entire day. That such a person, whether he's in the Beis Medrash, out of the Beis Medrash, Hashem is the whole thing on their mind, 24/7. The mission, why we're here, and it impacts every single thing that we do, and everything that we encounter, and everything that we eat, and everything we say, and generally what we think about, and how we conduct ourselves. So then, moilech aisan l'derech hayashar, l'davka b'sharshan. That person is comparable to the people in the mashal that are guiding them, showing them the way, the proper path to be able to get where it needs to go. Because all of creation is in flux, right? It's up to us. Like the Gemara says, a person should always see that the whole world is balanced, and they are the ones that are going to be machriya, l'kav chova or l'kav schus. All of creation is equal, and it's really up to us. And really, so what is the derech hayashar? To bring them back home, just like in the nimshal, right? Just like in the mashal. The merchants wanted to go home. So where are we taking the world? Because we take the world one way or another. Anytime that a person does anything, they are taking the world by the hand. The question is, where are you bringing it? We can either bring it further away from home, which is its spiritual source, or we can bring it mamish back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's up to us. The B'ditch B'Rav is a beautiful Torah, which I say very often, because every person has their own unique talents and abilities. Any person that doesn't have their special. Some people can do magic, for example. Different people have special talents, right? I can't do magic. Some people can. It's a special talent, right? Different people have special things, right? So the B'ditch B'Rav says, the pasuk says, "Intilim hayid v'hadar lefanav." Hayid v'hadar lefanav means literally that lefanav, in the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, hayid v'hadar. There's let's say glory and splendor, right? Hod is like a glory, glow, and hadar's splendor. Sort of interchangeable, similar things. Lefanav. Says the B'ditch B'Rav. He says the only reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives every person talent, and every person has a unique ability, is, like we're saying, to take it by the hand and to bring it back to its shirish, right? Meaning to use it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the B'ditch B'Rav says the word hadar in Hebrew means glory, splendor. In Aramaic, it means to return. Hadrabi, hadar, means to return. So the B'ditch B'Rav says, Haid, there's no greater glory in the world than v'hadar lefanav, than to return everything that He gave to us and to bring it back to Him. Haid v'hadar lefanav. For a person to see all of their different talents and all their different circumstances as an opportunity to bring it back. That's what the Baal Shem is teaching us here, an amazing thing. Which is to bring it back home. To allow it to reconnect to its source. Then we're bringing it, we're like a robber. We're ganavim. We're taking it and we're bringing it, we're kidnapping, or we're taking it into captivity. We're taking it away.
Is there any kind of shilul lishma?
That's what he says. I mean, even though the Gemara says mitay shilul lishma balishma, so you have to know, what exactly that means. But the kind of lo lishma that's not balishma is lekanter. Like if a person is, like Taisa says over there in Tainas, if a person really has no interest at all, and a person's against, and a person's living a lifestyle of gashmias, and a person's using it as a manipulative kind of way, and so that's something else. Lo lishma just means a person's not on the level yet, they're learning for their own ulterior motives, but they're still learning, they're really learning, But certainly a person who has Hashem in mind when they're learning everything that they do, so then we're bringing the whole world back to its source. That's Kesser Shem Tov Kuf. Okay, let's move on. Kesser Shem Tov Kuf Vav, Mea Baal Shem Tov. Pirush HaGemara, this is a very famous teaching. The Gemara in Brachas tells us that Kirum Zulus Livnei Adam, the Pasuk says, Kirum Zulus Livnei Adam, when exalted things are Zulas Livnei Adam, are cheapened by people. They're not appreciated. And the Gemara in Brachas interprets these words to refer to Dvarim Sha'ayim Dimiruma Shalaylam, to things which are Kirum. They're mamish, the loftiest things in the world. When Adam is Alzlimba. And people don't appreciate it. People don't understand the importance of it. And the Gemara makes it clear that this is a reference to prayer. Tefillah. That is not, and still Ariyam Azeh, but I guess this was true thousands of years ago as well, not something that people appreciate. People don't focus on it. It doesn't have this worldly, or at least apparently, it doesn't have any kind of, doesn't contribute anything to this world. Prayer can be seen as a waste of time. At least a person's learning their scholarship. A person knows how to make, how to paskin halachas. A person knows, there's some use. But stam, a person spends the whole day davening. The Rebbe Rashab would daven for hours and hours and hours, 9 hours he would spend a day davening. And it can be seen on a lower level, it's a waste. So what are you doing with your, what are you contributing? What are you creating? The Bnei Adam are mezalzel in tefillah. So a person davens along tefillah. It's not something that's appreciated by people. So the Baal Shem Tov says, the way that he learns it is deeper. It's not simply that tefillah is something that's oimed beruma shel olam, and could you imagine something so exalted is Bnei Adam mezalzelim ba. The Baal Shem understands that these two things are connected. V'akavana is lefi sha'pu'ula shel tefillah hi beruma shel olam. It's because tefillah is so lofty that many times, like some of the Chaver learned in Torah Beis, many times it doesn't look like tefillah produces fruit. Rabbi Nachman says there are so many people that are waiting for the Geula, and how many tefillahs have been davened. You don't see that it works. But like we ourselves learned earlier on in the Sefer, every single tefillah is effective. But sometimes the tefillah is effective in this realm. Sometimes the tefillah is effective in a different realm, for something else in a different way. Sometimes the tefillah contributes to a process where you don't see the answer that minute, but the tefillah is part of the process. Like Rabbi Nachman teaches over there, all of the tefillahs go up. All of the tefillahs are Gilui Shechina. And bit by bit, the Shechina is being revealed in the world in our mouths. Yimalit pi tila sechar, the mouth is the Shechina, and it's filled with praise. And a little bit, by little bit, the Shechina is being revealed in the world. When the Shechina is totally revealed, and every prayer that needed to be davened is davened, so then the Geula will come. But it doesn't mean that all the tefillahs that were offered up before that was for naught and a waste. But it looks that way. So the Baal Shem Tov says, Lefi sha'pu'ula shalat tefillah biruma shalaylam, because sometimes every tefillah is answered, but the tefillah that's answered is effective only in the higher realms. V'loy lamata. And we don't often see that every time we daven, what we daven for has an impact. Therefore, Bnei Adam is alzlimba. You see the difference? It's not just saying, it's the highest thing in the world, and how could it be that people cheapen it? It's because it's a davar that's not usually yared lamata. It's aimid beruma shalaylam. So therefore, that's why Bnei Adam is alzlimba, because they don't realize that irrespective of whether the tefillah has an impact in this world, the tefillah has an impact, and that takes emunah. And tefillah is bound up with emunah. It takes faith. They think that their tefillah was wasted. And the Baal Shem Tov says it isn't true. There's no tefillah that's wasted. Every tefillah has its impact on one level or another. We don't understand these things. And if every single tefillah was answered right away, there would be no bechira. It can't be that way. Nothing in Ruchnius can be a klal barzel. No skula works every time. It can't be that way. Hashem has to maintain bechira in the world. But that doesn't mean, that every tefillah doesn't work, or that every time you do the skula it won't work. It's just, we always have to adjust for kiloi machshavosei machshavosei, and we know so little about what's really good for us. We know so little about what we are, who we are, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plans are with Gilgulim over thousands of years, and we know so little. So sometimes tefillah is a davar ha'omed beruma shel olam, which means it is getting answered, but it's having an impact above. And the only reason that people cheapen it is because we think we don't see anything lamata. But says the Baal Shem Tov, Zeh Einai. Chas v'shalom, there's no tefillah that goes to waste. Kesser Shem Tov Kuv Zayin. And the tzaddik says, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, Biur Pirish, this incredibly deep pasuk. Every part of this pasuk is very deep. Achar v'kedem tzartani. David HaMelech says, literally, it means you have constricted me. I feel squished. Achar v'kedem. There's nowhere to move. Not in the back and not in the front. I'm squashed in. Tashas alai kapach. You've placed your hand upon me. A very deep pasuk. And Chazal darshan the word sartani, that it doesn't mean sar like miloshin narrow, to be squashed. They understand that sartani means miloshin yitzira. You created me. Achar v'kedem. And I'll just speak out from Chazal. Chazal darshan achar v'kedem sartani. Achar lemaise bereshis. The human being on the level of the body was created achar, last of all the different creatures created in the Yom HaShishi, after everything else in creation was already created. And kedem lemaise merkava. But on a neshama level, we come from before the maise merkava. On a neshama level, b'shvil Yisrael shenik reishis, Yisrael alu b'machshavat chila, we are this conjugation of extremities. That's what a Jew is, right? Is a body from the lowest place, and a soul from the highest place that comes beyond the angels. Achar v'kedem tzartani. That's what the Medrash says. Says the Baal Shem Tov, upirish ki achayos ratzav v'shoiv. The pasuk tells us that the chayos, right, like they found him in the Surah, and the chayos, that kind of angel ratzav v'shoiv, were running and returning. Rabbi Nachman speaks about in Torah Vav, and the Mekaris from the Baal Shem Tov, is that it isn't just talking about angels, it's talking about our lives. V'chayis ha'adam. Our whole life is in the side of ratzav v'shoiv. That's life, ups and downs, running and returning, in and out. Hu b'say katnus v'gadlus. There are going to be different states in a person's life. Sometimes a person's in a state of gadlus, where everything is clear, and a person has the confidence and the clarity and the conviction and the connection, and a person's feeling good physically, and a person's feeling good emotionally, and a person's feeling good spiritually, and that's gadlus. That's a state of gadlus. And katnus. And there are states which are the opposite of that. Every single person has that. That's normal. And he darshans, this is what David HaMelech meant when he said, Achar v'kedem tzartani. Kedem means there are times that I'm facing Hashem panim b'panim, everything is clear, Ya'er Hashem panim v'lecha v'yichuneka. There are times like that. And then there's the Achar of life as well. There's the top of the mountain of Har Sinai, and then there's Tacht Sahar. There's standing underneath the mountain looking up. There's both. And there's a Torah there too. There's a Torah of on top of Har Sinai, and then there's also a Torah of underneath Har Sinai. Vatashas alai kapecha. V'kasher yitein daito leida shuhu bekatnos. But when a person has the consciousness, which can only come from tzaddikim, only the tzaddikim are revealing this awareness that Yiddishkeit is going to be up and down, and there's an accommodation in Torah for different states that can only come through tzaddikim. Because the Torah in and of itself almost all speaks about the moments of kedem. Shulchan Aruch, is for people who are on the level. It's like, if you're operating in a healthy way, here's what we expect from you. The unpleasant moments of humanity where people struggle and suffer, and it's not, that's what the tzaddikim are here for. So it's a totally different teaching. It's the teaching of hara, it's not really the teaching of Har Sinai. It's the teaching of tefillah, not really the teaching per se of Torah. It's a whole different thing. So when the tzaddikim are delivering to us the awareness that kasher yitin daita leida shu bekatnos, to understand and to achieve the awareness that when a person is going through a difficult time, they are not out of the realm of serving God, but now they're still part of chayus. They're alive. This is part of life. But now they're not in a bechina of ratzai, they're in a bechina of shayv. But that's okay. That's normal, right? Because v'achayus ratzai v'shayv, life itself is running and returning. This is life. So when a person achieves the requisite awareness to be able to know that this is part of the journey, which is an incredible degree of consciousness. And most people don't know this. And when they hit a bump in the road, nobody ever told them that this is okay. Like, this is part of the journey. This is part of the tikkun. They think, okay, now I'm somehow I've fallen out of it, and I have to find a way to scramble back in. And the awareness is that no, there's no out. There's no out. Because less asar panimine. There is no place devoid of God. So there's no such thing as falling out. So when a person reaches the awareness, leida, to know and understand, shahu bekatnos, that what I'm experiencing is katnos, and that's part of a chayas rotzav v'shayim, says the Baal Shem Tov, ayidei das zeh nimtuku adina v'sharsha. When a person is aware of this itself can turn around their whole entire experience. Because we actually learned this in the Kutraman recently, that the gevura that a person experiences is rooted in the 5 letters, Mem, Nun, Sadi, Pei, Chaf, which are the closing letters, which are the aspect of din, because they come at the end of the letter and they prevent the flow of the letter onward. And so all the regular letters serve as channels within a letter and within a word to carry the word forward. But when you hit one of these 5 letters, they're a full stop, essentially, right? And so these are called the root of all gevura, which holds back, right? Gevura is severity. It causes something to pause, to stop. That's why on a traffic light, stopping is red. Red is the color of gevura. Gevura means to stop. Where is the root of gevura? Is bedas to zeher anpin. Is in the sphera of das, within the persona of zeher anpin, which is essentially our consciousness. And that's the root of all gevura. It's rooted in awareness. So the Baal Shem Tov says, if a person is encountering their experience of gevura on the level of the gevura, and they're not contextualizing it and seeing it for what it really is, and they encounter the yetzer hara and they don't have the consciousness behind it to be able to understand, okay, this is the snake, this is not me, I don't want this is something else. And a person approaches it with das, right? So if there's a ruach shtus, then a person has no chance. Because ein adam over avera elam kein nichnas by ruach shtus. The only reason that people are doing averas is because there's a shtus in their mind. Something's carrying them away from das. There's a certain part of them that isn't really aware. There's a shikha, there's a shviras haluchas, there's a forgetfulness. There's a feeling that Hashem is not here. And that this experience of, for example, taiva or doubt even, this is contrary to serving God. And right now, I'm in a void, I'm in a darkness, none of the teachings are relevant. Certainly they weren't speaking about a person like me who's so lowly and who's so out of control and I'm forget that. And maybe one day I'll be able to climb back into the vehicle and try to get back in. But right now I'm lost. That's the ruach shtus. Rabbi Nachman says in Shir Naim that the reason that the elephant allows itself to be bothered by a tiny mouse instead of just squashing him and be done with it is because of the folly because he doesn't know how powerful he is. That's the shtus. Meaning we don't realize that this was part of the program. This is not a fault, this is a feature. This is a feature of what it means to be a human being, is that we struggle and that we experience katnus that angels never, ever, ever experience. And maybe we whisper about angels and maybe they whisper about human beings, maybe they speak about this legendary being in some other realm, that struggles and rises above. So the minute that a person has das, then we took the gevura that we were experiencing and we lifted it up to its root. And when everything is lifted up to its root, this is a very important principle in Pnimius Torah, ein hadinim nimtakim ela b'sharasha. We can only sweeten din at its root, which means Pnimius Torah is not about dealing with the symptoms, because you can put all the band-aids in the world. It's not going to prevent the issue. What we really need to do is to really, really invest. Thanks for joining us. Really invest in figuring out what's the core, what's the source for the issue, and fixing it over there. So what is the source for the issue of going through Gevura? Says the Baal Shem Tov, Gevura is rooted in the Hey Gevuras in Mansapach, which is in the Das of Zeir Anpin. So when you learn Arizal, this is speaking about some spiritual realm somewhere, and it's just an interesting thing to know. If you have to know where all Gevura comes from this place called Mansapach in Das of Zeir Anpin. But in the Baal Shem Tov, Kabbalah is embodied. So when the Baal Shem Tov sees Zeir Anpin, it's me, it's us, right? It's the human being. And that means that the root of Gevura is in not some other place called Das of Zeir Anpin. It's here. It's in our own mind. It's in our own awareness. And if a person wants to sweeten the judgments, it requires the awareness that all of this is par for the course. Achar v'kedem tzartani. Hachayas urotza v'shayv. Life is the ebb and the flow. Life is the ups and the downs. When a person doesn't have that das, there's no hope. Because then they're stuck in the Gevura. And then when they experience the Gevura, they think it's Gevura. Because what else could it be? Because where's the sweetening of Gevura is in Das, because that's the shorish. And everything is sweetened in its shorish. When a person has that awareness, then they banish the Ruach Shtus, and then they're able to engage with that thing in a much holier, healthier way. And they say, this is also a step along the journey. This is what I'm experiencing now, but there's an avoda here. There's a way to serve Hashem here. This is programmed by God to enable me to encounter Him in a new way. And if I'm feeling this way, I can yearn to be free. And now I have the privilege of yearning. We don't speak about yearning. We speak about learning, but not yearning. We should speak about both. What about yearning? What about the privilege of the tzama l'cha nafshi kam l'cha b'sari? About the longing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like David HaMelech says again and again to tell him, Nafshi ka'eretz hayefa l'chasela. My soul is like a parched desert for you. People who are high all the time, connected all the time, never have that opportunity because they're there. But the avodah of a person that's going through a difficult time, the avodah of a person who gets up to daven and they have all these terrible thoughts that are coming to their head, this is here, I'm such a terrible person, no Kesser Hashem here. No, Kodesh Baruch Hu, he's the puppet master. This is exactly what's supposed to be happening. So why am I here? Because you realize, because all of life is gadlus and katnus. Right now I'm in katnus, beautiful. There's an avodah here, you see? Then you sweeten all the judgments, because then it's not just this stam thing called 5 gevuras and I'm in darkness. I'm bringing it back to the shirish of mansapach b'das dezer ampen. It's right up here. And if we can recontextualize, if we can shift the narrative that I'm still connected to Hashem, and on the contrary, this is a pathway to get close to Hashem. And everything changes. So the important thing to know is this, what David HaMelech tells us in Tehillim, Achar v'kedem tzartani. This is the secret of life. Achar v'kedem v'achayos ratza v'shayv. Okay, we'll do one more piece. Says the tzaddik, Kuf Tes mi Baal Shem Tov. Pirish, the pasuk says in Tehillim, Chishabti drachai, I have made an accounting of my ways, V'ashiva ragli el edesecha, and I've turned my feet toward your Torah, toward the edus and the chukim and the mishpatim. The Indian says the Baal Shem Tov, Ki ein tzadik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov le'yachteh. The pasuk in Tehillim, Shlomo HaMelech, wisest of men, tells us there's no tzaddik in the world that never slips, that never falls, that never sins, that never has some lower experience. But the Baal Shem Tov interprets this, Ratzah Loimar, not Asher Yaseh Tov L'Yachta, who only does good and doesn't sin, in contrast to the good, but he says that the Lo Yechta, that the sin, is part and parcel of the Yaseh Tov, meaning Ratzah Loimar, Yeh B'Tov Ahu Asher Yaseh Mibli Shem Pniya V'Chet Zeh Yefsher. He interprets the pasuk to mean Ein Tzadik Ba'aretz. There's no tzaddik in the world Asher Yaseh Tov, that in the good that they do, V'Lo Yechta, there's not a little bit of sin in that good, which means Shalol Lishma. No such thing. At the end of the day, the person is a person. And there's no way to excise completely any aspect of self. We're selves, that's what we are. And that's okay, that's how Hashem wants us. He doesn't want us to relinquish. We spoke earlier about every person having their own unique talents. Hashem wants us to bring that back to Him. But He wants us to be individuals. So there's always a sense of self. And there's no tzaddik asher yaseh toiv, that in all of the good that they do, v'lo yachta, there's not a little bit of ulterior motive. Has to be. And he explains, you know why this is? Why did Hashem cause it to be this way? Why shouldn't a tzaddik be able to just do something perfectly? Because you really think the yetzer would allow a person to do something perfectly? He would stop it right away. So when a person does something without shum davara, then the yetzer could attack that person. When the yetzer sees, okay, that's covered, like there's a little bit of yetzer there too, there's a little bit of self, then he lets the person do that thing. And he allows the tzaddik nikmar adavar to complete that matter, the yasel shma acharkach. And then once the person does what they're doing, and they were allowed to do it because they did it with a little bit of self, then eventually they'll come to lishma legamri. But they wouldn't have gotten a start unless the yetzer hara had let them go, seeing a little bit of shalei lishma. And this is Pshat in the Gemara of Avodah Zarah, shocking Gemara, that in Pumpadisa they had found different wine flasks that were open. They didn't know whether it was Yain Nesach or not, because no one knew who they were. And they said, Yisrael Ganavim Haim. They said, most of the robbers in Pumpadisa were Jews. And they said, you don't have to, it has a chazaka that they're from Jews. You don't have to worry. Strange thing. But there's this concept of Yisrael Ganavim Haim. So the Baal Shem Tov says Gevalt. It's a very high thing. It's not like a terrible thing, right? Obviously, Al Pi Pshat. But what's the depth of this? Jews are stealers. What does this mean? Says the Baal Shem Kitzar Chalitnaiv Dasa Yitzhara, because you need to steal away the das of the Yitzhara, b'chol dvar mitzvah, and every mitzvah that you do, you have to trick the Yitzhara a little bit. That's also called thievery. Yisrael ganavim heim. We know how to. We're tricksters. We're bnei Yaakov. Yaakov is a trickster, right? Yaakov is a pamayim. V'zeh shekasov. So says David HaMelech, Shechishavti drachai. I did things for me. Shechishavti, meaning it was for my own calculation that I walked in the way that I walk. First, there's going to be an ulterior motive, and that's okay. And then, once I'm in the door, then I'm going to be able to bring it all back to you in the proper way. Ragli hahergel. Right, the hergel, which is this that I became accustomed to, but azasisi lishma. Eventually, I'm able to lift it up, but first it needs to be with lo lishma. So Shekasa another pasuk in Chatzos Laila Akamlach La'aydas HaMishpadetzikach. Right, I get up in the middle of the night to praise Hashem. Ratzalaymar says the Baal Shem Tov, especially by Chatzos, is how could a person not feel a little bit good about themselves? They get up chatzos. It's a very hard thing to do. Very few people do that. It's impossible that a person won't feel a little bit of pride. So chatzos laila, he reads it, akum, I got up for me. L'tayalti agashmi, for myself. Miyaji yisari mishnasai, I got up, and then l'shem shamayim efshar. Stop to get up l'shem shamayim, no, I get up for my own needs. And then a little bit, a person gets used to this. Then a person can become accustomed to serving Hashem properly. But ultimately, especially in the beginning, it's okay for a person to feel a little bit of this ulterior motive. If you take a look in Midos Haraya from Rav Kook, that's writings on the different midos. Under the midah of Gaiva, Rav Kook says, Chas v'shalom, for a person to allow their awareness of an ulterior motive to prevent them from doing a Dvar Kedusha. He says the value of doing the Davar Shebekdusha always, 100% of the time, outweighs the value of withholding from learning something or saying something, producing something, creating something. Do that. That's okay. Even if a person will have a little bit of Gaiva.
How much is this l'chatchila? I mean, can you do something which, I don't know, say is a taiva, but it's a power thing, it's not a deva, it's a placate the yetzer hara.
That's a slightly different. That's a different topic, which is an important topic. But here we're speaking about something that's for sure a mitzvah, and a person knows that really there's an ulterior motive, and that's not causing them to withhold from doing that. On the contrary, own it. That's also part of being aware, right? Being aware. Okay, it's cute. It's like watching a baby. It's like we're all babies. It's like watching a baby, and it's like, okay, you have a little compassion. You recognize there's a part of us that wants that. Okay, let it be. And Yisrael Ganavim Heim, but we do it with consciousness that, on the contrary, Hashem created this system so that we should be able to get in. Once I'm in, I'll let go of that. It's like the booster on a rocket, where like eventually it reaches a certain altitude, it lets go of the thing and it carries on with its own momentum. And that's okay. Okay, Hashem should help us walk with these teachings. Maybe we can fold it up and keep it in our pocket or pull it out throughout the week. So we're really working on them and having them in mind.
ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי, האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני